Hello, fans, collectors, and investors. Welcome back to Iconic Baseball. I'm Iconic Al, and I'm very excited today to introduce number 47 on my top 100. And that is because this is the first player on my list that predominantly played in the 1800s. He played from 1890 to 1906, and during that time established himself as one of the game's first great pitching stars. In fact, if you go back and look at the numbers, you can make a compelling case that he is, in fact, the greatest pitcher of the 1800s. During his career, he compiled 362 wins, a 2.96 ERA, and 116.3 WAR. He won 30 games 7 times, the first and only person to ever do that. Granted, the game was different then. He routinely pitched 350 and 400 innings in a season, whereas now 200 innings is kind of a rarity. I'm talking about a man who was the 1892 World Series champion, throwing 2 complete games in that World Series, leading his team, the Boston Bean Eaters, to the World Series title. I'm talking about one of the early greats of the game, the great Kid Nichols.
Take me out to the ball game. Take me out with the crowd. Buy me some peanuts and cracker jack. I don't care if I never get back. Let me root for the home team. If they don't win, it's a shame. For it's 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out at the old ball game.
Charles Augustus Kid Nichols. He was born in 1869 in Madison, Wisconsin, son of a butcher, and he went on to become one of the greatest pitchers in baseball history. Certainly the greatest of the pre-1900 era. And that includes Cy Young, who achieved many of his compiled totals and greatness beyond the year of 1900. But if you just look at the period of time pre-1900, you have names like Al Spalding, Pud Galvin, Tim Keefe, Charlie Old Hoss Radbourne. But Kid Nichols stands apart from the rest of them. He is the outlier. His 116.3 WAR puts him not just apart from those players, but 5th all-time among all pitchers. Kid Nichols has the 5th highest WAR total among all pitchers, after Walter Johnson, Cy Young, Roger Clemens, and Grover Alexander. So we're talking the 5th highest WAR total all time among pitchers. So this guy really forced his way onto this list. The 1800s is not an area of focus for my collection yet. However, I wanted to put this man on the list because he belongs there. Whether or not I have a legitimate, significant item for Kid Nichols or not, and obviously I don't. I have a reprint on the right and a 1961 Fleer Baseball Greats. Aside from his ridiculous career WAR total, what did Kid Nichols achieve in the game? What makes him so iconic? Well, he broke in with the Boston Bean Eaters in 1890, and he immediately got the nickname Kid because of his, quote, youthful appearance and relative lack of physical heft. So he was a small guy, and he looked very young when he broke into the league, and that nickname apparently stuck, and we still know him as Kid Nichols to this day. Nichols retired with 362 wins, which is still 7th all-time. He was the youngest pitcher to reach 300 wins, reaching the milestone at the age of 30. Now, obviously the game was different back then, but still a very striking stat that he was able to reach that monumental number by the age of 30. He won 20 games 10 years in a row. And during that span, won 30 games 7 times. The only time that's ever happened. His career ERA of 2.96 is phenomenal. Just phenomenal. And in the postseason, the one time he pitched in the World Series was 1892, where he pitched 2 games during that World Series, totaling 18 innings, of course, because that's what you did back then. You pitched the whole game. And had an ERA of 1. Led his Boston Bean Eaters to the World Series championship. So, when he needed to do it in the postseason, he did it. Now, the collecting market for Kid Nichols is challenging, to say the least. There is not a lot of material out there to collect. There's not an abundance of autographs or playing days cards to speak of. There are a couple amazing issues out there, like the one on the right. This is the 1895 Mayo cut plug. There's also an amazing Old Judge card for Kid Nichols that, these are kind of grail cards for me. But this is a reprint from 1986, picturing the 1895 Mayo cut plug card for Kid Nichols. This is early in his career. That's where he looks more, I think, youthful and kid-like. But that's sort of a dream card, almost a grail card for me. So that's one that I like to keep a reprint of, just to remind me, keep my eyes open for it. It's one that I may not add for many, many years. And when I do, if I do, it'll probably be some very rough copy that maybe is graded authentic. And it looks like it's been through a tough life. But hey, for me, just owning a card from the 1800s with Kid Nichols pictured on it would be really meaningful. As far as the autograph market for Kid Nichols, he did live until the age of 83. So there are autographs out there. He did sign by mail. So there are some government postcards out there on the market that can be had. He also did, dinners and signed programs and things like that when he was being honored for, say, the Hall of Fame and other events. So there are some autographs of Kid Nichols that are out there on the market. They just are not plentiful and they are not cheap. So I'll put an example of a Kid Nichols autograph that I saw a couple of years ago at the Hall of Fame's exhibit at the All-Star Fan Fest in Colorado. But again, these are grail pieces for me. And, it's one of those things that if I'm at a national and I've saved enough money and the right piece appears in front of me, one day I would love to own a Kid Nichols autograph. I would love to own a Kid Nichols playing days card, either an Old Judge or a Mayo or any other cardboard from the 1800s that has Kid Nichols' picture on it. I'm all in. It's just, so far, it eludes me. All right, well, let's look at this 1961 Fleer Baseball Greats. This is in pretty rough shape, but again, it's just kind of a card that I like to keep to remind me. And you can't really have a complete collection of the top 100 without Kid Nichols. So this is my filler piece, I will call it, until I can obtain one or two more meaningful items for Kid Nichols. And I had to have something to show in the video. But yes, so this is one of the rare videos that I'm not showing anything very significant. There's no grail pieces here, but you cannot do a countdown without including him. And it's an area of growth for the future, for my collection, and likely many of you. All right, well, thank you for watching. This has been a lot of fun for me. It has been from the entire beginning of the countdown. And until next time, everyone, keep collecting and stay iconic.